If your cruise is stopping in St. Thomas, honestly relax because this is probably one of the easiest and least stressful cruise ports in the Caribbean. And I think that's especially true if you're cruising with kids. Some cruise ports feel intense. If you watch some of our Europe cruise videos, places like Rome or Santorini, you know sometimes we're trying to squeeze a lot into a very short amount of time. You're worried about transportation, timing, lines, getting back to the ship. It can feel like a pretty packed day, but St. Thomas is different. One of the reasons we make cruise port guides is because we cruise fairly often, and we're always surprised how often people show up at a cruise port with no idea of what to do or what the port actually offers. I want to see people take advantage and make the most of their day in port. And even now, I still watch cruise videos before visiting somewhere new because it helps reduce the stress a little bit and it helps you visualize your day. Some of you watching this may never even visit St. Thomas, but hopefully these videos give you a little feel for what the islands are like and how fortunate we are to be able to visit some of these amazing places. So let's talk about St. Thomas. Most cruise ships dock either at Havensight or Crown Bay. Havensight is probably the more convenient location because it's close to shopping, restaurants, and the Paradise Point Skyride, which is the cable car that goes up the mountain overlooking the harbor. Havensight is where Carnival and Princess usually dock. It really depends how many cruise ships are in port that day. Royal Caribbean and Celebrity ships typically dock at Crown Bay. Crown Bay typically acts as like an overflow option, so you may want to double check your itinerary so you have a better idea of what your starting point will be. Also remember, they drive on the left side of the road in St. Thomas, so keep that in mind, which can definitely feel a little different if it's your first time visiting. And if I was visiting St. Thomas tomorrow with the family, honestly, this is probably what I would do. I'd probably start the morning by either doing a cable car or maybe doing the zip line if the kids were up for it. The cable car is super easy to do, especially if your ship is docked at Havensight. You go up the mountain, you get some incredible views overlooking the cruise ships and the harbor, and then maybe just grab a drink and take some photos and then head back down. Then after that, I'd probably grab a taxi and head towards the beach. Now, when it comes to beaches, you've got some really good options in St. Thomas. The most famous beach is probably Magens Bay. Magens Bay is beautiful. You have calm water, it's really scenic, it's very family friendly, and honestly, one of the prettier beaches in the Caribbean. It's a very easy beach day. You can rent chairs, grab food and drinks, spend a few hours there without really needing to plan much. Now, personally, I think our family tends to prefer Coki Beach a little bit more. Coki Beach has a little bit more lively atmosphere. The watercolor is incredible. Snorkeling is maybe just a tad bit better. It's also near Coral World Ocean Park if you're traveling with kids and looking for something extra to do. Magens Bay is more relaxing and scenic, and also it tends to attract the majority of cruise ship passengers. I find that Magens Bay feels more of a tourist area compared to Coki Beach, being more vibrant and active. Also, it now costs $7 per person to go to Magens Bay Beach, while Coki Beach is still free. And personally, I've been to St. Thomas 5 times, but when Aiden and Ethan visited for their first time back in 2018, Coki Beach barely had any vendors. Now it's grown a bit, and it's grown in a good way. It has bars, restaurants, so you'll find everything you need at Coki Beach. A lot of your experience at either beach is going to depend on how many cruise ships are in port that day. That can make a huge difference in St. Thomas, depending on how many ships are actually in port. So if there are 6 or 7 ships in ports, places like Magens Bay are definitely gonna feel a lot busier. The beach you choose really depends on the vibe you're looking for. Magens Bay tends to attract more cruise ship passengers and has the entrance fee, while Coki Beach feels a little bit more secluded, and in my opinion, the water is just a tad bit better. Coki Beach also has a couple great spots for snorkeling. And then another really nice option is Sapphire Beach, especially if you want beautiful views looking towards St. John and maybe slightly fewer crowds. At Sapphire Beach, you're gonna have to travel a little bit further, but you will see a lot fewer passengers. So maybe the beach is just a tick below, when it comes to that turquoise look, but the snorkeling is very good. And so definitely give this beach some consideration if you're looking for an option with fewer cruise ship passengers. And there's also a few places to grab a snack or grab something to drink there. Another really good option if you want a little more structure to your day but still want to avoid some of the cruise ship crowds is doing a catamaran or snorkel excursion. This is actually a really nice option because you avoid the crowded beaches and instead you spend the day on the water snorkeling around St. Thomas. One of the highlights of the excursion is the chance to snorkel with endangered sea turtles in their natural habitat, along with other marine life and some really, really amazing water. After snorkeling, the tour typically heads towards Honeymoon Beach, where you can relax without nearly the same level of crowds you'll sometimes find at the more popular beaches where cruise ship passengers go. The excursion also includes snacks, unlimited drinks, and a full open bar. And one thing I really like is that the group sizes are much smaller. This specific tour only takes a maximum of 12 people, which makes it for a much nicer experience compared to some of the other larger excursion boat tours in St. Thomas. And this is why I say St. Thomas is such an easy port. You can just go with the flow. You won't go wrong with any of the beaches on the island. We love a beautiful beach. Our day usually consists of spending 4 or 5 hours at the beach, taking a taxi over towards downtown to do a little shopping, grab something to eat, and then head back to the ship. Or maybe you skip the trip into downtown St. Thomas and just come back to the ship early and enjoy a quieter afternoon on board while everyone else is still out exploring. That's the nice thing about the port. Now, if the beaches aren't really your thing, St. Thomas is also one of the biggest shopping ports in the Caribbean. The downtown area has a lot of jewelry stores, watches, luxury shops, souvenirs, restaurants, bars. And if you don't want to go all the way downtown, even the port area themselves and that port area where the cruise ships are at has a ton of shopping. But the port area has more of your typical souvenir items, and many of the jewelry stores near the port cater heavily towards the cruise ship passengers, which can result in higher prices. Another option a lot of people don't realize is actually very doable from St. Thomas is taking the ferry over to St. John, specifically over to Trunk Bay. If your ship has a longer port day, this can be an amazing option, especially if you've already visited St. Thomas before. You can take a taxi over to Red Hook, catch the ferry to St. John, and then visit places like Trunk Bay, which is one of the most famous beaches in the Caribbean. Of all the beaches I mentioned in St. Thomas, Trunk Bay is on a completely different level. Also in St. John, it's way more laid back with a natural feel to it, and it's absolutely beautiful. I have a video guide showing you exactly how to take the ferry over to St. John and back, which I'll link below in the description of this video. The ferry ride itself is beautiful and gives you some incredible views along the way. As for the ferry to St. John and back, I would just say make sure you leave yourself plenty of time to get back, because ferries and taxis can sometimes take longer than expected, and traffic heading back towards a cruise port can definitely back up later in the afternoon, especially when multiple ships are in port. So personally, I always like giving ourselves more time than we think we're going to need. Now, one thing families may want to think about ahead of time is transportation with younger kids. A lot of people ask about bringing car seats or booster seats on vacation. Every family has to decide what they personally feel comfortable with. We've cruised and traveled all over with our kids, and we've never traveled with a car seat, but everybody's comfort level is completely different. In St. Thomas specifically, a lot of transportation is done through those open air safari type taxis and smaller shuttle style vehicles. And that's just kind of part of that island experience. So if you do ride in an open air taxi, keep the younger kids seated towards the middle and not near the outside edge. Last time we were in St. Thomas, I had Emma sitting on the inside next to me, and her pocket stroller was underneath my feet. We hit a big bump and I was holding her pretty tight. And the next thing I knew, that pocket stroller flew out of the taxi onto the street. It caused everyone to look back. Luckily, it was just a stroller and that thing was pretty solid. I jumped out, ran back, got the stroller out from the middle of the street, and off we went. That stroller has actually been really solid. It's been a great travel stroller for us. The good news is most of the driving around the island usually isn't at a very high speed, but at the end of the day, every parent has to make the decision and what they feel the most comfortable with. Also, most taxis in St. Thomas are cash based, so definitely bring some smaller bills and cash with you for transportation, beach shares, food, drinks, and tips. And taxis have fixed prices based on the destination. Also, one thing I do want to mention, and this applies almost anywhere in the Caribbean, make sure you're very clear on pricing before you agree to a private taxi or an island tour. The last time we were in St. Thomas, we saw a pretty unfortunate situation unfold near the port. From what I could tell or overhear, there was confusion about whether the agreed upon price was per person or for the entire group, and the cost of children being included or not. And unfortunately, things escalated way beyond where they should have. Now, to be clear, we've been to St. Thomas multiple times and have always had a great experience with the people there. The people we've met have always been friendly and welcoming. But at the end of the day, Everybody's trying to make a living, and communication is really important. So anytime you book transportation or a private island tour anywhere in the Caribbean, just make sure you clearly confirm whether the pricing is per person or total for the group before you leave, and confirm the prices for kids. Is it the same as an adult? Is it free or a reduced amount? Unfortunately, with this situation, things escalated from a verbal argument into a physical altercation, and a couple people actually ended up not making it back onto the ship because local police got involved. So definitely don't let that stress you out, because overall, St. Thomas is still one of our favorite and easiest Caribbean cruise ports. I just think it's an important reminder anytime you're traveling anywhere in the world. But overall, if I'm going back tomorrow, I'm probably going to do the cable car in the morning, heading over to Coki Beach with the family for a few hours, and then maybe we'll stop downtown for some shopping, grab some food afterwards, and then we'll head back to the ship. Believe it or not, we've actually walked from downtown all the way around the marina back to the cruise port when we had plenty of time. It's a nice walk. You know, what makes St. Thomas great is that it's just a very laid back and relaxed cruise port. Not every port needs to be a huge, complicated adventure. Sometimes the best cruise days are just finding a beautiful beach, grabbing some food, doing a little shopping, and appreciating the fact that you woke up in the Caribbean. Those are usually the cruise days that our family remembers the most. Let me know down in the comments what your favorite thing to do in St. Thomas is. And if you enjoy cruise content like this, we've also done cruise port guides on places like Barbados, St. Kitts, Costa Maya. Even we're doing more videos in Europe. So definitely be sure to check those out. Be sure to share this in your Facebook cruise group or anyone you're going to be traveling with. Enjoy your visit to St. Thomas, and again, be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video.